Hello? Hello?
Podcast Network Asia.
Hey guys, welcome back to Small Talk, small conversations with huge impact. My name is Alec Cuenca and I'm your host. And before anything else, welcome to the show. If this is your first time, then I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you learned something from this episode, then go ahead and check out the other amazing episodes because you can learn a lot from them as well. And if this is your nth time listening to the podcast, if you're an avid listener of the podcast, and welcome back, I am so happy to see you here because that just means that you're still interested in self improvement. So today we have a very, very special guest. I have on the show one of the few online friends that I really admire, that I really look up to in the content creation and at the same time in the business area. So our guest for today is a shameless creative entrepreneur based in Manila, Philippines. She founded her video company Braveworks Inc. with her husband Mel. Braveworks creates videos and design with the foundation of a creative community communication strategy to make sure all creative requirements reach their goals and help attain business, personal, or organizational objectives. She's she's a writer and a creative communication strategist and a fellow content creator. She also hosts the podcast Be Brave Creative. Let's all welcome to the show Kia Alvarez Abrera. Welcome to the show, Kia.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me here, Alec. It's an honor, and it's a long time coming. We've been talking about this for forever.
Yeah,
So
since
thanks for having
forever.
me.
Yeah, no, the pleasure is all mine, and thank you for making time here. And the first time that we met, I really wanted you to be on the show because your take on the creative side of things, and it also helps with the self improvement area. I think a lot of people can benefit from them, which is why I was so excited when we got connected on TikTok. I was already watching your videos. I think the first video that I saw was when you did the one with the pen magic trick, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And as
This is
as
some of
soon as I
the
saw, I was like, okay, this woman is amazing. I gotta connect with her. So yeah, now you're here, and we're gonna talk a lot of things today.
yes. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited.
So yeah, before anything else, how are you doing? I know you've been crazy with a lot of different projects, but you've just finished doing a workshop, right? It's what to film workshop,
Yeah.
WTF workshop.
Yes,
Yeah, how was
yes, we actually did. Yeah. Well, we actually just finished the second run this morning. The
mm,
first run we sold out within a week, so we had to double the slots, and then it's still sold out. And
wow.
one of the reasons why I created that workshop is because we are entering a video first world
Mhm.
where people are now, cutting through the digital noise with personalized videos, and it's shaping the future of marketing. So now a lot of people are challenged with, algorithm favoring videos nowadays, with more audiences consuming more content in video form. So I always position video as an amplifier, as a tool. So every time I teach these classes, I always try to position it as, you're not going to come out of this as being as someone who can create better videos, but
Mhm.
I want you to come out of this as a better creator in general. So
Mm,
it's all about, sticking to the fundamentals first, because when it comes to video, when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to different kinds of creative work, they're all amplifiers. And in the same manner that it can amplify a very beautiful, clear, inspiring message, it can also amplify a messy, self-gratifying message. So that's why I like to stick to the fundamentals before going into other forms of creative work.
I love that. Were your attendees um, like business owners or like people who just want to learn about video or how to be a content creator?
Well, they're more personal brands.
Mm,
I love concentrating on personal brands just because, creating a relationship with an audience member, it always feels very personal to me. When it
mhm,
comes to creating content, I always feel like it's a conversation between me and the people that I want to talk to. So I like working a lot with personal brands, people who have a message to say. They might have a business as well, but the way that they connect with their consumers is still through the personal brand.
mm.
So that's something that I love discovering and rediscovering over and over again.
So I'm sure a lot of people are getting a lot of help, in rediscovering their way on sharing their message online. So,
Yeah.
uh, will you be having another workshop for that?
We're
And
planning to have the workshop at least once or twice a month. So
ooh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. The demand is there. So
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in learning more about what to film, then go ahead and check out Kia's workshop. But before we dive more into the creating content or the creativity aspect, I want to touch on a little bit on you when you were starting your journey on the creative field. At what point did you realize that you wanted to be in the field that you're working in?
you know what? That's a really tricky question because when I was a kid, I've always had a creative itch.
Mhm.
And as far as I can remember, I love anything to do with communication and performance. So before I even became, before business even came to mind, I just love performing. I love being in front of people. I love being able to make people happy. I loved singing. I loved anything that has to do with being front and center, and just talking or singing or producing any form of sound. So that's where my creative journey started. And as far as I know, before, I wanted to become a performer. I wanted to become a professional singer. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be in theater and all of these things. And I did all of that. But if you're familiar with my purpose video, the more that you get into these things, the more that the purpose just uncovers itself. And I feel
Ooh.
like, there's I love communicating. I just love talking to people. I love relating with people. I just it's an itch, to create something that communicates with people. So whether that's through music, through theater, and now through the business of communication, it's something that has led me to this. So, I've been performing and in communication for close to 25 years. I've been in advertising. I went to advertising for I've been in advertising for almost 15 years, and then in creative entrepreneurship for 7 years. So everything, I believe, everything that I have done in the past, everything that I've learned, through all of these different creative areas that I've touched on,
Mhm.
it all like converged in this one huge moment where we and even then, when we created our business, it wasn't even niche down. We just wanted to create something.
Okay.
We wanted to
Wow.
create something that mattered. That's it. And here we are.
And here we are. And I think that's really interesting. Like that just shows that sometimes we don't really figure out, everything about the thing that we want to do or we're going to do. But you mentioned a little bit about that purpose video. And
Mhm.
so I want to ask you, do you feel that you chose your passion slash purpose, or did it chose you? Did it choose you?
Well, that's a good question. I kind of feel like it just revealed itself
Hmm.
the more that I made decisions. So I think there's a convergence between both my choice and what it revealed itself to be. Because I wouldn't know what the purpose was going to be if I had chosen otherwise.
Mhm.
because it was deliberate. For me, I wanted to try this. So if I didn't like this, I'm going to go another way. If I didn't like this, if it doesn't make me feel, if it doesn't align um with eventually having significance over just success,
Mhm.
for me, it doesn't make sense for me to pursue something without intention.
Mm.
So, what I like to do is I do try different things. I like to dip my toe in the water, not exactly dive in. So, I like to call it the next doable step.
Mm.
So it's just focusing on what's within the vicinity, what can I affect in my immediate environment, and then making a decision based on what the variables tell me. So when I make that decision, if there are red flags, in the making of that decision, if I'm regretting something,
Mhm.
then I feel myself pull away and then trying another thing. So for me, it's just a matter of trying and trying, and then when I feel when I feel like something is happening here, something is brewing here, I think we should pursue this path. And when we do, again, more and more of that purpose just uncovers itself. So I kind of feel like you kind of choose to dive in,
Mhm.
and then when you dive in, that's when you see things. And when you see things, you then decide if you want to pursue that thing. And then the more that you dive in and the deeper you go, the more that you're gonna go inside the core. And that's when it all reveals itself. you know so if I had chosen to, for example, continue with my performance or my singing career, um it's like following my effort. you know
Mhm.
so had I chosen to stick with my singing career, I still feel that I can make it successful. It's still gonna lead to the same purpose. I kind
Ooh.
of feel that way. It's I feel like it's all going to converge into this one final purpose. There's just many ways to get there.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
that just opens up a lot of possibilities for people, and it's also a call for people that you got to be the first one to take that action. You got to try first, and then figure it out along the way. But
Yep.
I want to ask you like what percentage of it was like just I'm gonna try it, and then versus like I'll try to plan it out.
Well, I do like a certain level of planning first. I mean, I've made a lot of decisions in my life that I made irrationally. So, um, those are the things I feel that I regretted the most because I didn't calculate anything. Because I still believe that when you take a risk, you want to start low risk. you know when you're trying to dive into different things, you want to try it low risk, because there's still a fine line between practicality and stupidity. you know
Mm-hmm.
so um one example that I can think of is if you're faced with wanting to sign up for a coaching program, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and everything around you tells you that it's a huge risk. It's a huge risk, but you know what, I'm ready to dive in. I'm gonna make this my year, etc. But then what are you sacrificing? You're sacrificing food on the table. You're sacrificing hospital bills for your loved one if you have someone in the hospital. you know you want to be able to calculate that risk first.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask myself every time I'm going to try to jump into something, it's not just what do I stand to gain? It's not just about that, because people usually, that's where they focus on. What can I gain from this? But what they take for granted is what can you afford to lose?
Mm.
So we need to ask those two questions. And in my many years in the field, these are two questions that are, the no is just as important as the yes. What you stand to gain is just as important as what you stand to lose. So what are you prepared to lose? If this works out, are you prepared to lose this much money? Or
Mhm.
if it doesn't work out, are you okay with losing this if you're
Mm.
not gaining anything? But I think, in every single decision that we make, we always have that, we always stand to gain something. If it's not what we expect, at least it's something that we're learning.
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
love that so much, and especially on the last part when you said that if it doesn't work out, we're learning, right? And
Yep.
so I think that has been my thesis for most of the time. I also like to think that I was calculating risks that I was willing to lose, because that's as important as what you can gain. And
Yep.
there's a lot of people who are focusing on what they could gain, but there are also people who hyperfixate on the things that they might lose. And so
Exactly.
I think people get paralyzed, also when they feel like they have so much to lose, so they let fear paralyze them into not taking action. So
Yeah.
how do you differentiate, or like, can you tell us a little bit more about take calculating the risk and knowing that, okay, there's always risks involved, but also at the same time not letting yourself get paralyzed by fear?
When we talk about fear, I always go back to what I believe it was Brene Brown who said it,
Mm-hmm.
that fear is a natural response of our brain to protect us. So if there's something that's paralyzing you, if there's fear coming out of you, it's just your brain telling you that this is something that I have never seen before. This is something that you have never jumped into before, or it's something that you have gone through before and you didn't respond well. It's just our brain's way of protecting us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's called the leap of faith. Everything about you, every red flag, well, not red flag, okay? Just don't just stay away from red flags. But every single alarm is like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, danger zone, danger zone, danger zone. But then if you have the confidence that you can make it to the other side, why not try? And again, you have to reassess and reassess again. What are you prepared to lose? And what do you stand to gain? So there has to be a balance still of both.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I would ask myself, what if it doesn't work? But what if it does? Those inner dialogues going,
Yeah.
what if it does? But what if it doesn't work? If it doesn't work, then I would have lost time. I would have lost money, maybe. I would have lost, other things. But is the gain ultimately greater? What can I stand to learn from this as well?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to fear, sometimes our fears are irrational. Sometimes. But for me, it's always about reassessing where the fear is coming from. So when I assess my fear, again, it's what do I stand to gain? What do I stand to lose? If I lose this, am I able to am I going to be able to regain it, or get over it, or move forward even if I lose this? I think that's part of the reassessment that I do every time I'm faced with a fear. And then most of the time, the fear for me personally is losing face. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what a lot of
Yeah.
people struggle with as well. It's more than, the money. It's more of the, people are going to lose respect. I'm afraid to make a mistake because I'm going to look
Mm-hmm.
stupid. It's usually the fear of losing face. But, I've learned that if I lose face in this, what are the repercussions? And if the repercussions happen, can I actually move forward? Am I going to be able to bounce back? So it's assessing the fear of the fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I
I
try
love
to.
that.
I kind of feel like it's almost overthinking it. But
Uh-huh.
especially if you're about to take big risks, it always it always pays to have really good self-awareness.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that it's like overthinking the fear, like understanding the fear of the fear. You know
Yeah.
what that fear is actually fearing, and for me, it's not really like a bad type of overthinking. It's actually you getting to understand what you're scared of,
Oh, yeah.
because that's the only time that you could deal with it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we think that we're scared. No, what are you scared of, for? What's the thing that really makes you afraid, right? So
Yeah.
when you understand it, that's the only time you can deal with it. And also you mentioned, I think this is an amazing concept. It's about regaining the loss, because a lot of
Mhm.
people think that if you lose something, it's irreversible, but
Yeah.
most of the risks involved are actually okay, we can try to work this out, we can learn a lesson from it, or we can try to bounce back from it. And yeah, I think most of our fears are actually reversible. So when we
Yeah.
understand that, okay, we really have nothing to lose, especially if you're um, a very young entrepreneur, or someone who's just starting, you have nothing much to lose. So when you understand that, okay, I can regain this, I can
Mhm.
learn something out of it, and then it just helps you move forward, right? So that
Yeah.
concept of just regaining the loss, it's really, really important. So
Yeah.
yes, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
sharing that. And you also touched on like if you want to beat the fear, you need to have confidence. So I want to ask you, like personally, have you
Mhm.
always been this confident? And if not, how are you able to manage, your confidence levels?
I have glaring imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
like huge,
Really?
huge
No, it doesn't
imposter
show.
syndrome. See, here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. There is a huge shift that happens when you start not to beat your imposter syndrome, but to learn how to work with it. So I learned
Mm,
from my mentors, I learned from experience that when there's a certain feeling that there's something missing, or there's like
mm.
unworthiness, like why am I even here? Um, there was even a study about the benefits of imposter syndrome, where people who have imposter syndrome, they acknowledge that there's something missing, therefore they want to learn better. And when they want to learn
Ooh.
better, they empathize better, they ask better questions, they learn how to diagnose better because they want to learn. And that's how I learned to work with my imposter syndrome. Every time I would go on stage, I would go on, um, I would go on media, or I would go to, do a workshop and stuff like that. It's not about me. Suddenly you're shifting the perspective. Okay, I have imposter syndrome. I get it. You know, what's missing? What do I want to teach people? Instead of asking, what do I want to teach people? It's shifting the focus to, what do they want to learn from me? What is it that can give value to them? How can I help them today? So then, my workshops right now, like this morning, I finished a workshop this morning. It's all about asking them questions. I mean, I'm giving them information and then allowing them to ask questions. And I'm also asking them questions. I let them go on breakout rooms. I let them decide
Mhm.
amongst themselves. I let them write stuff, you know? And at the end of the day, the learning is better absorbed because you're allowing them to ask their own questions, to do their own self assessment, to write their own stories. Because at the end of the day, when you're working with fear, or you're working with the imposter syndrome, or that general feeling of unworthiness, you're there's a massive shift that happens. And I love working with that gap because it then allows me to listen more rather than talk more.
And that just changes the landscape of like teaching or sharing value. It's more of what can they learn from me? And I just love how you showed that and told your story earlier about where you were in the workshop. And just by having that small shift
Mhm.
where that turns into what can they learn from me, then you start to put in the work, right? And then when you put in the
Yeah.
work, you don't notice that it's actually helping you with your imposter
Mhm.
syndrome,
Yeah.
because now you're
Yeah.
you're, you're seeing, wait, I can actually do this, right? And so you're gaining
Yeah.
confidence from it, and now you're
Yeah.
you're also dealing with the imposter syndrome. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
And
amazing.
to add to that, the tension comes when you keep on, focusing on you.
Hmm.
You're always focusing on, am I going to look good? Am I going to do this? Am I going to be, um, are they going to like me, etc. So the result is always self-driven,
Hmm.
or it goes to yourself rather than, are they going to walk out of this, being 10% better as a creator? Are they going to walk out of this workshop, this talk, being 1% better?
Hmm.
If I'm able to do that, then I know I have done my job. But if I keep on focusing on how I look, if I keep on focusing on, I'm gonna scramble my words and they're gonna hate me. If you keep on, putting those negative stuff ahead of yourself, you're not gonna go anywhere. So it's really just shifting the focus to helping them rather than making yourself look good.
Yeah, and when you do that, like the focus also shifts from not really fixating on the small errors that you make,
Yeah.
just as long as they're getting the point, or they're learning from you, or they're getting value from you. You don't worry
Yeah.
about your grammar, you don't worry about how many ers that you have or you do. You just get to the point that are you guys learning something? And if they say
Yeah.
yes, then your purpose is fulfilled, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not going to work on your grammar or you're
Mhm.
not going to work on, these things that you can improve. It just means that you don't fixate so much on the
Yeah.
mistakes that you might make.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
want to fix your attention on just serving the people who are there because of you.
Yeah, yeah. Another, I might add into that.
Mhm.
Since we're talking about imposter syndrome, one of the
Mhm.
things that really helps me with that is like I would think of life in different levels. So, for
Mhm.
example, I'm at level 20, and
Mhm.
then I would create a workshop, right? I would want to teach people. So I'm not creating the workshop for people who are at level 21, 25. I'm creating it for the people who are starting from level 0, who wants to be at level 5 who wants to be level
Yeah.
10. Because um if I look at it that way, that I focus on, wait, which market am I targeting, then
Mhm.
definitely I could add something significant to them, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, for the people who are listening, that can also help you out. But yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that, Kia.
Mhm.
Now I want to touch on a little bit about the creative side of things.
Mhm.
Do you think that being creative is part of the human nature, or is it something that must be nurtured and learned?
It's both.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that creativity is innate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's the creative confidence that we lose along the way. I do believe that we have
Oh.
creativity. Picasso, I think it was Pablo Picasso who said it, that um, every artist is a child. Or, sorry, every child is an artist. The problem is,
Mm-hmm.
how do we remain an artist when we grow up? Okay. So when we do, we all have the capacity to be creative. That's how we were made, you know? Um, what do you call this? You can look at the babies, You can look at the kids. You can see how
Mhm.
creative and how imaginative they are. Every single person is innately creative. And one of the things also is when we think of creativity, we always just associate it with performance, visual arts. We think creativity
Mhm.
equals art,
Yeah.
but you can be in the accounting industry and be creative with numbers. You can be in the engineering industry, be creative with angles and, science and math and all of these things. You can be in the medical field and be creative with the way that you understand and diagnose human life. Everything in this world revolves around creativity. And that's something that we have to understand. So, creativity is innate. The reason why our creativity goes into hibernation
Mhm.
is because our school system has not changed for decades.
Yeah.
And there are, I don't fully blame the school system, or I don't fully blame the teachers. I love teachers. I have, teachers that have been my mentors and have supported my creativity.
Mhm.
But we lived in a society where creativity is boxed. We live in an education system where our creativity is all about memorization.
Mhm.
We're all about staying in your seat, staying in line. I mean, that's discipline, but then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when that happens, our creativity takes the back seat, and then we follow. We go with the flow.
Mm.
And every time that there's a toe out of line, we get punished instead of, you know, we want to be, we're being graded to do good in every single subject
Mhm.
instead of pushing us to specialize in one.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there are so many things that can be fixed and can be improved in our education system. For example, um, letting people embrace failure,
Yeah.
letting people embrace the ability to make mistakes, because we get punished for this, you know.
Yeah.
So, um, and then we are asked to sacrifice our passion for
Mhm.
practicality.
Yep.
So then our creativity, everything that we've ever imagined as a child, it just it takes a break. It gets
Mhm.
pushed to the back of our minds. Oh, it's never going to work, you know? So then we stop creating. We just go with the flow.
Mhm.
We have our safe routines, and then suddenly, we come to the conclusion that we're not creative, but we are, you know? So then we become so afraid of trying new things, of creating new stuff, because we were brainwashed. We were
Mm.
conditioned
Yeah.
that if you fail in this, you're going to be punished in life.
Yeah.
So then we become afraid. That's what happens. And there are the few who people feel are just incredibly gifted. I mean, there are
Mm.
prodigies and stuff, but you know, for a normal people like us,
Yeah.
for normal people like us, when we have that creativity, when someone sparks that creativity in us and supports that creativity in us, you know, it it doesn't go into hibernation.
Mhm.
We're told that, it's okay. You make a mistake, try again. I've had teachers like that, and I focused on them. So from there, you're not afraid to make mistakes. You're not afraid to, and this is
Mhm.
why, and this is an interesting thing, and this is why A students work for C students.
Mhm.
because the
Yeah.
C
Yep.
students, they're so, they're already used to failing. They're used
Yep.
to, bouncing back. Most of the A students, they're scared. They're scared to make mistakes. You know,
Yeah.
I was an A student, but I was never on top of my class.
Mhm.
I was never on the top of my class. It means that there's always something missing. But I just know that I love to learn. That's it.
Mhm.
So, you know, to answer your question, it's both. It's innate and then it's developed.
Yeah. And I really love everything that you said. I'm learning so much. I hope that the people who are listening are learning as much as well. And I just want to reiterate something that you said about making mistakes, because I believe that only when we step out of the box, that was given to us by the system that we grew up in, that's the only time that we can actually be creative. Because
Yep.
you can't be creative in a sense that you are like there's no box, like there's no structure. Like creativity, for me, creativity happens when you have a structure, and then you
Mhm.
are allowed to step out of it or try to look at different angles,
Yeah.
look at a different point of view. But again, with the system that we have, especially in our schools, not to blame teachers or principals, but the system itself, it's not really assigned to nurture that side of us. And so
Mhm.
I think you mentioned something very, very important, that all of us are innately creative, but at the same time, we allow the conditioning that was set to us by schools to not be creative, so that you can be in a safe place. Because in doing so, you're not going to fail, right? You're going to stick to the structure. You're going to stick to the steps that were provided for you,
Mhm.
and now you're not going to
Mhm.
fail. You're not going to make mistakes. But at the same
Yeah.
time, isn't it that through that, um, I mean, that's the easiest way for us to grow or and develop as a person, if we make mistakes. So like it's a full circle. So I think I,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
really hope, yeah, that people understand that if you want to be creative, there's a lot of trying and figuring things out, and not conforming to it, because well, that's being creative, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's also an unfair advantage, I believe. There's an
Mm-hmm.
unfair advantage to limitation as well.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is that there are some people who already feel like they're boxed in at school, and when they arrive home, their own creativities are not being nurtured as well. But sometimes it's also people saying that, oh, it's the kid's choice as well. But
Mm-hmm.
as a young person, you kind of conform to what everybody around you is feeding you.
Yeah.
You get shaped by your own environment. So even if I went to school, I did well in school, it's because I have a natural love for learning. It was because in my own household, my mom and dad, they supported every little crazy thing that I did.
Mm.
I mean, as long as it doesn't bring me harm. but
Yeah.
but they supported that.
Mm-hmm.
you know they didn't force me to go, to take up something that I didn't want to take up in college. They didn't force me to go one way because it was practical. They gave me guidance.
Mm-hmm.
I allowed my school to give me the fundamentals, and the only reason why I did well is because I I kind of learned, or I'm learning the how do I phrase that? It's like learning the learning behind what's being
Mm.
taught. For example, in math, a lot of people hate math. I love math.
Mm-hmm.
Math doesn't love me. But the reason why I loved math is because um it stimulates my problem solving skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Math, you know how to navigate and troubleshoot
Yep.
through problems. I loved science. I loved learning biology because I love learning about environment and animals.
Mm-hmm.
I love learning about the human body. I like to understand and have self-awareness of the physical things that's happening to me. Music is one of my favorite subjects. I mean, for obvious reasons. And so many different things. I love learning English because I love communicating. I love learning literature because it takes me to different worlds. So it's really, it's finding something that, makes it, I'm not going to say makes it bearable, but it's finding something in the learning that
Yeah.
you can work with moving forward. Because
Yes.
I hear a lot of people, trigonometry, how is this going to help me? I want to be this or I want to be that,
Yeah.
learn trigonometry, learn, what is that proving? Proving is in geometry, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but I mean, learn all of these things. Look at how your problem solving skills are being nurtured. Look at that. Because you know how to troubleshoot, you know how to figure out the problem, you know how to find a way around it.
Yeah.
So it's looking for that deep learning, something that you can use in terms of skills. It's not just,
Ooh.
what you're learning from the book, it's the skill that you're actually acquiring. And that actually um that facilitates also your creativity.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Like, if we're gonna look at what you said, uh, one thing is common. It's
Mhm.
learning it. It's
Absolutely.
not the subject itself. It's learning
Mhm.
the subject. It's the process
Yeah.
of learning, because then you'll see that, wait, I can actually learn that. And I actually experienced so I was really having a hard time back in engineering, and then I shifted my focus on. I got lost again. I got cut up again.
It's
Am I
okay.
back?
Yes, you're back.
Am I back?
Yes, you're
Okay.
back.
Okay. So as I was saying, I shifted from, am I going to pass the subject? Am I going to learn what I need to learn to pass a subject? Or am I just going to learn something more about myself, that, wait, I could solve trigonometry problems. I could reverse engineer stuff. I could learn that, I could design things. Like, it's
Mhm.
about you
Mhm.
being more aware because of the topics or the lessons that you're studying, right? And so that also applies in the creativity side. And so, I mean, we could talk all about, you know these different things, but I really want to get a touch on your side of the creativity. So
Mhm.
can you share with us, like, the secrets of Kia, on how do you, or what's like your, how do you say this? How can you share a little bit about your creative process,
My creative
from
process.
from having no idea at all and then making something out of it?
That's interesting. Well, I I like to ideate a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I always deploy and I love this method. It's called design thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So design thinking is it's a process of problem solving using creativity and design. So, um in design thinking, you always start with empathy. So you always start with listening to what people need. So in my area, there's a lot of empathy listening involved.
Mm-hmm.
Brave Works right now, my company with my husband, um, it's now repositioned as a social impact marketing agency.
Mm-hmm.
So being a social impact marketing agency, it doesn't stop with profit. It doesn't stop with, creating beautiful campaigns or beautiful videos or what have you. It starts with behavior change. It starts with, changing people and moving people to action so you can uplift society. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, in the realm of social impact marketing, there's a lot of social listening involved. In order for us to solve a problem, we need to understand the problem from the side of those who are experiencing it. So it's not enough that we're assuming that there's a problem and we're assuming that this problem is correct. We need to actually ask people
Hmm.
if this is what they think about it. And then from there, after we go through the process of, empathy, we then ideate. So the ideation is just brainstorming every single idea that we can come up with and not editing anything. We're not saying no to anything. No matter how crazy it is, we're going to write it down. Because you never know. And when it comes to ideation, there's no editing involved because you don't want to limit yourself. It's also the practice of creativity. I mean, oh my gosh, it's not practical. There's no limit to it. Just ideate. Just write it all down. That's why I have like 247 notebooks. It's all ideation. So after you ideate, you then validate. You try to based on the restrictions and the limitations that you have, that's when we start narrowing down these ideas. The ideas, they don't get rejected. The ideas, they get archived. So then, you can pull it out of nowhere when people need it, when another campaign needs it. And then from there, we validate. So given these 3 selections or 2 selections, whatever it is, we're going to present it to the people and we're going to ask them what they think. So there's a method to that to make it non-biased. So we always ask, how they feel about it, what they think. It's not leading them to any one answer, but it's just really finding out what they think and how it makes them feel. And then from there, we iterate. So that's the next step. It's iteration. So we iterate, we go back to the drawing board if we need to. We ask them again and then go back again. We go back and forth. We always collaborate with the audience. The audience is always your number one collaborator when it comes to these things. And then from there, we don't stop with the final thing.
Mhm.
Once we deploy it, we have to monitor. We have to make sure that people are actually being moved to action with what we're doing. So in every single business decision that we make, every single thing that we ever make, it's always starting from empathy and then deployment and then going back and then deploying
Mhm.
again and then going back until, we never perfect a system. We never perfect anything. We just make things more efficient. I mean, everything, it just grows,
Mhm.
This is a never ending cycle of creating. At some point, at some point, you are going to be able to maximize the entire process for a time.
Mhm.
And then suddenly something changes. And then you have to adjust with it. It's the
Mm.
only constant thing in the world, change. So you want to make sure it's resilient, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're able to adapt. We're in a pandemic. No one saw it coming,
Yeah.
right? So our company, we were focusing a lot on videos before the pandemic.
Mhm.
We had to pivot. And it was because of empathy listening that our
Mm.
company grew and niched down to what it is now.
Yeah.
So the videos were the first ones to go. What do? We listen to the audience. We listen to the market. What do they need? Let's go there. So that's where we went. We hit 8 figures last year.
Crazy.
And
Crazy.
and I mean the numbers, the income, it's a result.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
really about, it's about the impact. We, the people that we're able to help.
Mhm.
So that's the whole creative process from ideation to continuous iteration.
I love that. And it also how do you say this? Like when you're in that constant process of getting that feedback, it's not like you're creating something and then you're posting it and then you're hoping and praying that the video or the work that you're doing is good. Now
Yeah.
you actually know that it already has an impact because of the constant reiteration
Yep.
and the feedback that you're getting from the people who will get benefit from the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
That's just an amazing process, and I'm gonna look into that a little bit later on, and look at where I could apply that in my process. So thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, we have a lot of things to talk about. I actually prepared so many questions, but we're already at 51 minutes. So, before we actually end this episode, I want to ask, what is your best advice for people who are starting in their creative journey?
Hmm. My tag is always be brave, create.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Everybody has creativity, but not everybody is brave. Not everyone is brave enough to use that. So every time something scares you, think about uh, think about what your people, think about the people that you serve and what they're losing because you're not pushing your ideas to the world. Think about that and start start to make the basis of your creation. um you got to start with how you can help. It's as
Mm-hmm.
simple as that. The basis of any creation that works always starts with who. You start with why, and you also start with who. Who do you help? you know who are the people who can benefit the most out of what you can create? you know so if you're scared, it's normal. So always make sure that you have self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you know how to assess things. If it's fear is usually irrational, so
Mm-hmm.
just go for it. Low risk first. Just dip your toe in the water and then try it. Just try it. Do the next doable thing. The next doable step. It's very important. So if I am just going to have one single piece of advice, look at your next doable thing and do it.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And this has been quite an episode. I learned a lot from you, and I am sure that if you allow and if you would like to, I would love to have you again because we have a lot of things to talk about. I would love to know
Yes.
more and try to pick your brains more. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. And before I let you go, we have a small segment here on Small Talk. It's called
Mhm.
Real Talk. So
Okay.
basically, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and you're going to answer with either one word, one phrase, or one sentence, no explanation.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So ready? All right.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay. So what's the best advice you have ever received?
Received. Hmm. Ah, wow. There's a lot though. Best advice I've ever received. Um. Oh my gosh. There's a lot. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I got it. I got it. While the difficult takes time, the impossible just takes a little longer.
Oof. Wow. Okay. Next question. What is the worst advice you have ever received?
Sell, sell, sell.
Okay, thank you. Now, next question. If you could tell something that everyone in the world would hear, what would you say?
If I could tell something that everyone in the world would hear, what would I say? Be brave and create.
Be brave and create. Okay. Fourth question. What would you say to your 18-year-old self?
Just go for it.
Love it. Okay, last question. What legacy do you want to leave in this world?
Every time someone creates something, they're creating something that matters.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I've learned a lot. I'm sure the
Yay!
listeners are learning as well. But before we go, please share where can they find you and where can they listen or share a little bit about your podcast as well.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Be Brave, Create. It's very new. So I think I only have like 4 episodes up in there. So we are going to start recording more episodes on that podcast. So again, it's all about being brave about your own brand of creativity. So it's called Be Brave, Create podcast. It's on all podcast platforms. And of course, you can find me on Instagram at Kia_Abrera and on TikTok at Kia Abrera. There you go.
Yes, follow her on TikTok and on Instagram. You will learn a lot. So Kia, thank you so much for being here. It's
Thank
been an
you
honor.
for
It's been a
having me.
pleasure.
This is
And
a long
yeah,
time coming. Thank you so much, Alec.
we'll
Thank
definitely
you.
have a part 2. So
Yes.
again, thank you. And thank you to everyone who is listening to the podcast, who's still with us right now. If you like this episode, go ahead and share it with your friends and your family and your loved ones. And to everyone who you know that can benefit from this, if you enjoy this, please share this on Instagram. And don't forget to tag me at Small Talk Podcast or at Alec Cuenca. And yeah, this is it for me. My name is Alec Cuenca. This is Small Talk, small conversations with huge impact. And I will talk to you guys next episode.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Podcast Network Asia, the hosts of the program, or other programs of the network. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.